We'll call to order the BZA meeting for October the 26th, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll give a quick explanation of this evening's proceedings. The events will proceed as follows. The appeals will be heard first, and then the end of the business of the day will be after that. You're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but you're not required to do so. All who speak or testify before the board will be sworn in. This may be either done in a group or individually. Anyone addressing the board is requested to use the speaker stand, asked to give your name and address for the record, and that our meetings are recorded, so you could be possibly cross-examined by an attorney. All documents, photographs, or any other evidence presented for each case may be accepted by the board. The chairman will rule whether or not the items will be offered that will be accepted or rejected. The persons representing each case also may withdraw a document. The zoning administrator or staff member will present a brief summary or statement for each appeal. Once the BZA staff presentation is complete, the appellant will have the opportunity to present their case. Following the appellant's presentation, the chairman will ask for anyone in favor or in opposition to the appeal to ask them to speak. In some instances, time limits will be placed on the presentation. I don't expect we'll have that issue tonight. Next, the board will motion to close the public portion of the hearing. Then individual board members will begin with their questions. Board members may ask individuals who have testified to return to the speakers to the podium. Following the board's question, a motion and a second will be made by the members of the board to either approve or deny the appeal, and the decision of the board will be in effect for 30 days from the vote. Finally, with respect, if we get heated, we may ask you to leave. Everyone was very civil last time. We appreciate that, and we expect it will be that way as well. And next will be a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartle?
Here.
Mr. Shuck?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Roberto?
Present. And we are missing one from our, and tonight we will be a quorum. So we did have one of our family members that was hit by a car this evening, so he was unable to make it. So there's our condolences and sympathies for him. Hopefully that she will be recovering nicely from it. We will then swear in anyone that plans to speak this evening. Will you please stand and raise your right hand? You swear, affirm, testify that you will tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth before the Board of Zoning Appeals. Say, I do.
I do.
Thank you. Everyone that is speaking tonight has signed in, correct? Okay, perfect. All right, so our first case tonight would be BZA 2022-13. The applicant who's representing the property is requesting a variance to the Colerain Township Zoning Resolution Table 7-2, side yard setback, rear yard setback, minimum lot width, and minimum lot area. Location of the property is 11321 Hamilton Avenue, parcel number 510-0021-0065-00. The applicant is Christo Homes, and the property owner is Tobin Limited. Does the staff have a presentation?
Yes, we do. So, as you stated, the BZA case is 2022-13. The applicant is requesting variances from the side yard setback requirement, the rear yard setback requirement, the minimum lot width, and the minimum lot area requirements set in Table 7-2. The location we're talking about is 11321 Hamilton Avenue, and the applicant is Christo Homes, with the property owner being Tobin Limited. So this is where the property is located. It's in the northeastern part of the township. Here you can see kind of an orientation of where the property is located in regards to street names, the vicinity map. This shows the surrounding zoning. It is surrounded by R6 zoning on the west, and to the east it is planned development business. Here's an aerial of it. You can see the heavy residential with all the homes there on the left. Here's a property map showing, again, the property lines and the heavy residential. And then here's the topography. It slopes upward to the west, and it is lower in elevation to the east. And then here's some images, kind of give an orientation of what the property looks like. And you can see the downward slope towards the east. So the applicable zoning is located in Article 7 and 7.3 of the Site Development Standards and Table 7.2. Again, we're talking about minimum lot area, minimum lot width, rear yard setbacks, and side yard setbacks, which you can see on the screen what those requirements are. Here's the highlighted portion of the table in our zoning resolution. Also, an applicable zoning resolution is the portion of our zoning resolution that talks about multifamily dwellings. This breaks down what requirements multifamily dwellings have to meet in order to be qualified as an eligible project. And here's the portion of the zoning resolution that talks about that. And so the proposed plan by Cristo Homes on behalf of the property owner is requesting permission for 20 residences made up of 10 duplex buildings. The variances requested are a variance of 10 feet to allow for a 5-foot setback off the property line, and a 0-foot setback along the side lot line shared between the attached structures. A variance of 32 feet from the 65-foot minimum lot width requirement to allow for a 33-foot width. A variance of 3,804 square feet from the 7,500 square feet minimum lot area requirement to allow for a lot area of 3,696 square feet. A variance of 15 feet from the 35-foot rear yard setback requirement to allow for a rear yard setback of 20 feet. So this was their original plan at last month's meeting, and then this is the new plan where you can see 6 less units, 3 less buildings, and then the changes described on the previous slide. Here's the variance review criteria that we make the decisions, you would make the decisions for. So staff findings, the proposed use is a permitted use in the zoning district in which the property is located, which is R6. It is staff's opinion that granting the requested variance will not be contrary to the public interest. You can find the conditions in staff's packet or on the next slide. The zoning resolution does not adequately address this type of development. The resolution does allow for multiple units on a single parcel. However, it does not allow for multiple units to be within their own parcel. It is not adequately written to serve these types of developments. And then the proposed use is permitted in R6. And so staff recommends approval of the requested variances with the following conditions: that these variances be granted in accordance with the submitted site plan only, and any significant changes to the plan as presented to the board would nullify the granted variances. Additional screening would be provided in the rear portion of the yard to give residents additional privacy, and then a traffic impact study be conducted to show the effects the development would have on current traffic conditions. And that ends staff's report.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone have a question for staff?
Yes, I do. In the staff's recommendations, I see something, additional screening. Can you describe to us what we're referring to?
So I think what staff was thinking was similar to conditional uses, such as a religious place of worship. They're required to do specific screening when abutting residential. Jared, was that?
That's exactly correct. So if staff would pardon me, if the board would like something like some evergreen, evervite, something like that, some dwarf everybody's. It's something that, the applicant have already, they revised their plans. They went from a 2-story down to a 1-story, as you hopefully saw in the packet. And then if the board felt there were any additional needs that were required to meet some kind of screening for the existing structures, if the board saw fit to put some type of condition on there, such as our evergreen standards on our buffer yards as they exist now, maybe even something a little more dense than that, just to provide the screening if it seemed to be a concern of the board or of anyone in attendance.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Just one. The new revised packet we have still has some erroneous numbers in it. So if we were to approve this with staff recommendations, just want to make it clear that we'd be wanting to recommend the 33-foot minimum width and the 3696 square foot. Because on your first page of your packet, it still has the old numbers.
That'd be
Thank
my
you for pointing that out, sir.
Sure.
Any other questions?
If as staff mentioned in point D, the zoning resolution doesn't adequately address this type of development, is there any push to sort of alter the resolution in the future so that it could adequately?
Yes, sir. There's definitely a push. That's my fault directly. We had this case come up, as the board well knows, earlier this year. We are currently in the process of rewriting and amending our entire zoning resolution. I made the mistake of hoping that we would be through the rewrite portion prior to having another case of this nature. That's not obviously the case, so we will have an amendment put forth probably at the very beginning of next year, of this coming year, to address this, so it doesn't come before the board again, as I believe it should not be. So if the zoning commission agrees with that, if the board of trustees agree with that, then we will have that resolution passed to the text amendment. That's the text amendment, excuse me.
And I just was asking for a little clarification there. That's in reference to the two buildings abutting each other, not all the other stuff.
Yes, that's exactly correct. Yep, so in where our code, in an R6 district, it does allow, as Mr. Springsteen stated, for multifamily up to 4 units, so long as they share a common wall. If you did all that on one parcel, you'd be fine, and you could just subdivide it as a condominium in a sense, as it's been done throughout Colerain Township for at least 20 years now, almost 20 years now. What it does not do is allow the instance we're talking about now to give an individual parcel, which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, opens up a lot of financial options, and it's good kind of own the property near your property. So to own the ground under your property, so that it'll address that. If a structure shares a common wall, that and meets the other aspects of the multifamily as they are written, at least now. I don't know what exactly the rewrite would be in a year or so. As long as it met that, then it wouldn't require a variance, at least for those. Any property line that has a shared common wall attached to it would not be viewed as like a side yard necessarily.
And my question, because I feel that this is going to be a subject of reference point in the future, whatever this decision's made tonight. And so I don't want to, I'm just not want to stray too far from our current zoning. And we focus more on the common wall on two separate parcels. That's the thing I was concerned about with redrafting a zoning and then trying to adopt all the other variances that they're trying to include. So.
Okay, my apologies. So to clarify for anyone attending tonight, so if a building were to share a common wall, it's staff's belief that a side yard setback should not apply in that sense. Now, but a great point, thank you, Mr. Roberto. The other variances, rear yard setback, something like that's not tied to that. Okay. Does that clarify?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. And so just you could build a 4-unit multifamily structure right now and turn it into a condominium in a sense where an individual could buy the unit itself, just the structure, was it right? Everything from the exterior walls in, or interior walls in, from the drywall in.
Sure.
I believe. I'm not a realtor or a lawyer. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah. The applicant, the property owner, anyone in any R6 district or 7 could do that by right. They could take this structure, they could have 4 units, they'd be condos, and we wouldn't be here if there weren't any other variances being requested.
And the rest of the land would be tenant in common.
Yes, exactly. Yep, thank you very much. So this is owned by the HOA or something, yep, tenant in common, right. as you eloquently put it.
Very good. Any other questions for staff?
Yes. So getting back to the significant,
Yes, sir.
which I brought up last month. Some of these, so you're saying right now that the minimum lot width is 33 feet. But there's some already on their proposal that's at 28 and 29. So is that significant?
Well, first off, it'd be whatever the proposal is, and then, for me, the largest thing to answer that tricky word of significant, being a subjective term, would be, no more units than what's proposed, but if they got down to some other agency, which they would have to do regardless, make that clear, like, if soil and water said, hey, you had to move this 3 feet this way for some reason, and it wasn't significant in the sense of like, not that they would ever do this, but if a developer was trying to sneak something in, basically, right? So to try to subvert, or try to stop any type of subversion from happening would be the biggest thing in that statement. That's the intent of that statement. So the general proposed plan that we're looking at now should be within all relevant factors about what is actually built into reality. The only thing would be if some agency required, let's say the engineer on their traffic study required all the driveways to be tied into one entrance, and that caused something to be pushed maybe a foot back.
Right.
In my mind, that wouldn't be significant, but if it would be to you, and you're more than welcome to strike that condition as well. That's,
My brain would be, they're already showing some at 28, 29, so why doesn't our recommendation just say minimum lot width should be 28?
well, again, the part I would fear for that is if we approve that, with the glasses we have on tonight, the perspective we have tonight, and then, again, not that let's say they even left this developer, any developer's
Well,
hands.
I
it's
mean,
stuck to the
regardless
property.
of theoretical
Sure.
issues that cause a problem, I guess if variances were to be approved with the 33-foot stipulation, we're seeing, as the day that we approve it, as they walk out the door, it's already less than 33 feet, the width.
Which specific lot is that?
There's several.
There's several. There's
There's at
probably
least
7.
5 or 6.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, it seems weird that we're making a recommendation for a minimum lot width when we're saying that it's less than that to begin with. So,
29.4, some 23, so, at least the shortest part of the property line. Again, that's where I try and have some blanket statement on there that says, not to get too down the rabbit hole, there's a specific development we're dealing with that was, it went through the plan development process, so through the zoning commission, where the final development, the FDP showed a one setback, the record plat came through with a different setback, the number was missed, it's caused all kinds of problems. The foundation plan is showing a 35-foot setback, but then there's a 3-foot cantilever on the second floor that wasn't caught in the meeting, so that's where I'm
well, yeah,
Yep.
those things are fine because those are unknowns, but I'm saying from day one, we're seeing things that aren't going to be as per your recommendation. And is that okay? I mean, we can decide that as a board, I guess. Or change it in our, when we make a motion, if we were to grant the variance.
I appreciate you bringing it up. I'm sorry that they're not congruent. That's the last thing we want. And just, look at like, for instance, on lot 3, there's a 15.28 portion of the lot line and 12.98. To not approve one specific, like a traverse of the lot line, that's not a complete one. I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
by any means, say that. I apologize for missing that, though.
I think, yeah, that's good.
Anyone else? Is the applicant present? Good evening.
Good evening, Etta Reed with Bear Becker, 6900 Tylersville Road, Mason, Ohio. I'm here on behalf of Christo Holmes to present this case. And I guess we'll just dig right in. And first, I want to try and answer your questions on this lot width. I have this also in front of me. I guess I'm not seeing the less than 33-foot lots. If you can tell me the ones that are like 28, 29, are you looking at the rear of the lot or the
Yes.
front? Okay. So what we've done is we measure the 33 feet at the front of the lot at the building line. And so this is a curvilinear street. And so therefore, the 33 feet would be measured at the front building line. And so once you get to the rear, like for instance, lot 13, you have 28.29, but then there's an angle point in that rear, so you add 6.71. So we would have 33 feet width on those lots all along there. That, because we would have to make, the units themselves are 28 feet wide. And in order to comply with the 5-foot side yard, we have to have 33 feet where the buildings are. And so we will have that, or we can't get a building permit. So I'm not worried about that occurring if you approve the variance for 33 feet. Does that help?
It's a good start. Right now, just give your presentation and we'll
Okay.
we'll do the questions a little bit
Sure,
later.
understood.
Thank you.
So we were here last month and we heard your concerns, and so we did go back to the drawing board and come up with a new plan. And so what we have before you today is a plan showing 20 residential units versus 26. So some of the changes that we made include the following. We did reduce the number of units, as I mentioned, from 26 to 20, so that's 6 less units. And therefore, in turn, we reduced the number of residential buildings from 13 to 10. A big change after hearing the residents' concerns regarding privacy is the previous units were 2-story units. So we have gone and we will have ranch single-story units. So that should address their concern regarding privacy. We have also increased the minimum lot width from 29 to 33 feet. And again, that's because we have a ranch product, so it's a bigger footprint, which in turn resulted in us needing the rear yard setback variance because, again, in order to provide the square footage that we were looking for and the footprint that we have, we're going to go wider and deeper. So we will now be asking for a 15-foot rear yard variance, whereas previously with the 2-story units, we did not need that variance. And then lastly, we did increase the minimum lot area from 3,326 square feet to 3,696 square feet. And again, all of that was to address the fact that we are now going to a ranch product instead of a 2-story. So by reducing the number of units, we've in turn reduced the number of driveways. So we feel like we have turned to address the safety issue along Houston Road, as well as the fact that these homes, now that they are ranches, they will be 2-bedroom versus the 3-bedroom that we were talking about on the 2 stories. And they're going to be more marketed to empty nesters and young professionals. So the concern of having children playing in the front yard and the safety of children should be minimized again, and for that reason. So that's really kind of our presentation for today. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Christo is here also to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor of this resolution? See none. Anyone speaking in opposition? Okay, we'll go in the order of the sign-in sheets, just so I can keep things orderly. Is Etta Reed, or do you plan on, no, you guys, and then, how about Christina Cisco? Yes, ma'am, if you don't mind.
Hello.
Hi. If you'll state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Christina Francisco. I live at 2508 Houston Road, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45231.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for hearing my concerns. My name is Christina Francisco. I currently reside at 2508 Houston Road, which is right next to Building 1. Once again, I just wanted to express my feelings and concerns regarding the build. Since we weren't able to make a rebuttal last time, I hope I can hit on all these points. Mostly, the traffic in this area is already terrible, which you guys have been told and have heard. It has gotten worse over time for the 35 years that I have lived on this street. We have a major highway with cars going on and off all days, time of the night, sometimes during the day are busier than others. I read about the traffic study that's being requested. If the traffic study proves to make the area worse, what will be the result? Because I have lived here long enough, I know how it was then and the way it is now. My mother lives at 11300 Gravenhurst Drive, which is actually right behind the build. When you step onto her front porch, you can see the top of Hamilton Avenue and Houston Road. I watch the cars come through our neighborhood, cut through more than they should be. I feel if you build multiple family homes, more people are going to cut through, not wanting to deal with the people coming in and out of their driveways, or less driveways, or sit in traffic at the flashing light on Pippin Road. This has nothing to do with the build. This is an area that should have been updated a while ago, the road-wise. It is 4 lanes up at the top when you're at 275, which is great. But once you get onto Houston, the traffic is so heavy coming from that highway, especially during the times of 4 to 6 and in the mornings from 7:30 when I leave my job. That's when the traffic usually starts getting bigger. I guess my confusions are why the variances can't be met now that the backyard variances have changed, which still makes us a little on top of each other, and the side yard setback as well. This is the only green space in our area, which I understand that development has to be made. If you look to the right, there's a gas station. If you look to the left, there's a Wendy's. And now when we look straight ahead, there'll be ranch-style homes, which is fine with all the variances is what confuses me. Now, the areas, this lane should, I'm so sorry. This should not be this way considering all the traffic. This area should be more lanes than what is already currently there. This space has been there for 30+ years. All the traffic and the incidents that we've had, the mailboxes coming off the house, people flying around the corners, my uncle almost getting hit in the driveway, my mom getting her car totaled in the driveway, my neighbor across the street who got his car totaled after he had sold it. And then also my other next door neighbor, Dave, who got his car totaled in his driveway from people coming off that highway. If there is any children in those homes, I would hope that a guardrail would be built up all alongside that street right there, because there's no sidewalk on either side of the street all the way up past the flashing lights. It's a busy street. It doesn't have a sidewalk. Putting up a speed device won't help. We've had police sit in my grandmother's driveway certain times of the day. That didn't help either. We've asked for a guardrail to be put up, and that hasn't happened. We're just worried about the cars barreling through the yard. And like I said, again, that has everything to do with the highway. It has nothing to do with the build. The road is outdated, and now it needs to be updated. We only have a flashing light at the end of the street, which makes for a longer line of traffic. Once again, I just want to express that I'm not opposed to the building and updating. I just feel in an area, a residential area where the homes are single-family homes, that's what should be put in the area. Once again, last time there was an expression stating that the public wasn't affected, and I just feel like there's some issues that should be addressed with the variances and also with the road itself. That's it. Thank you.
Now, I have a name at the top of the list. Is it a Barker or Barter last name? It lives at, how about 2534 Houston Road? No, sorry, I skipped you because I couldn't read the name. If you don't mind, come up and, that's quite all right.
My name is Brent Bays, and I live at 2534 Houston Road, the third lot around the curve there. I want to reiterate a lot of what the young lady before me just said. I've lived there for 27 years. I've replaced my mailbox or repaired it 8 times. The phone pole in my front yard's been hit. The fire hydrant's been hit. The neighbor across the street from me's house was hit. And as she stated, there's been many cars and driveways damaged. There's a lot of foot traffic on Houston Road. Kids, whatnot, coming by, they walk through our yards. I have no problem with that. I'm not one of those get off my yard old guys yet. But it's a concern. I just don't feel like, even though this is proposed for, just maybe like empty nesters or whatever you just said, I have to suspect there's going to be some families that are going to move into these places. And it's going to increase that. Without sidewalks, I don't know, it's just not safe. It's just a little too dangerous, I'm afraid, to add this to our neighborhood. I just don't feel comfortable with it. And that just about sums it up for me.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yep.
Next person I have on the list would be Sherry Douglas.
Hi, my name is Cherry Douglas. I
Cherry, excuse
reside
me.
at 11347 Gravenhurst Drive. I am responding to the above appeal for variances, which Cristo Homes and Tobin LTD have once again presented to our zoning board for approval with some changes, which I appreciate their efforts, but it's just not enough. Up front, I would like to say that it is very confusing to say that this property is zoned R6 when Hamilton County website has it zoned for commercial. It's also very confusing that the property is on Houston Road and not Hamilton Avenue. I would think that this should be corrected first and foremost before anything else should continue, my personal opinion. Also, the staff recommendations under review criteria for approval does not match up to what the staff recommends on the request for variance with the department director, David Miller's, in the BZA 202213. I think you all kind of caught those numbers were not matching. They have different variance feet mentioned on number 3 and 4. And, but anyway, so gets confusing as to which request is being proposed. Actually, though, neither is suitable. The buildings are too close together with the side yard setback request creating unsafe surroundings. If someone could address it, I would just appreciate knowing how all this confusion can just be overlooked or just skipped over. It's just caused a lot of confusion with the request. But I am asking the zoning board to abide by the current variances already set in place for Colerain Township. Cutting the lots down more than half and squeezing in all these duplexes is way on and above what should be allowed, backing up to an existing row of single-family homes that have been established for many years. Who would assume, if building a home, that we would have a single-family home behind us? The way this was set up on the site map would cause several of our existing homes already to back up to 3 or 4 different properties along our back property line. So that's like getting 3 or 4 new neighbors just in your backyard. I read where the staff feels that this should all be approved and that it should not have any cause or any public concerns. Well, my question is, what is considered public concern? What about the natural gas pipeline that runs through the piece of land? I'm concerned about that. What about traffic and traffic jams, more noise? Since our last meeting, I know of 2 new accidents on Houston Road. Maybe somebody will address that. I know one car ended up in somebody's front yard. What about drainage? Removing all the green space will surely cause new drainage issues and corrosion. And how would anybody here like 4 new neighbors in your backyard? And when I say that, it's because you'd have the 2 duplexes, and then on the corners you'd have a duplex and a duplex. So for my yard, that's 4 neighbors that I may at one time or another have to contend with. With the ranch-style duplexes, they will be even closer to our property with this new request. And I am truly sorry that the land is too narrow for what Cristo wants to do, but there is a reason why variances are put in place. Every neighborhood needs a little green space, and maybe Cristo should reconsider this piece of land for what they were wanting to build. Once again, I'm asking Colerain Zoning Board to abide by the variances already in place so that in time, maybe single-family homes could be built with 1 family home backing up to the existing homes with the original variances in place as originally intended. Under 4.4.2 variance review criteria, stated under B, it says that the board may authorize a variance when such variance will not be contrary to the public interest, where owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the resolution will result in unnecessary hardship, and so that the spirit of the resolution shall be observed and substantial justice done. Several times in reading over these, this little packet, it says, no grant of a variance shall be authorized unless the board finds that such variance of the resolution will not be contrary to public interest. Again, public interest involves auto accidents too many to count, increased traffic on Houston Road, traffic cutting through existing neighborhoods, traffic jams, more noise, garbage pickups at 3 a.m. on all these duplexes squeezed in to a piece of land too small to accommodate the living space, increased drainage issues, giving up a rare green space in our neighborhood is definitely things that qualify as public interest and concerns and can and will cause a hardship on our neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods. Houston Road is kind of like a little main point there, and you got neighborhoods that go from each corner. It's going to affect all of them, the traffic. I was disappointed to see that David Miller in the Planning and Zoning submitted staff recommendation of approval of the requested variances. Again, let me mention that they do not match the ones previous mentioned. And under staff finding B concludes that it is staff's opinion that a granting of the requested variances will not, in capital N-O-T, he put, be contrary to the public interest. And in D states that the zoning resolution does not adequately address this type of development. Well, to me, all these things mentioned here tonight is public interest, and they are presenting a hardship. So, and as far as not addressing this type of development, so are we just gonna assume? Are we just gonna make something up? I ask that the variances stay in place as originally thought out by our founders. The truth is, it is not a good place for a line of family homes to be placed. And you can't control who's gonna move in. I mean, we all know that as neighbors. So I agree with the gentleman before me. There will be families move in. But because it is, this line of buildings is gonna be placed within feet on a main artery coming off of a busy interstate. I am aware of the traffic study requested. However, I've lived there for 40 plus years, and they have tried to straighten out that road at the top by Hamilton. They've tried to move it over some. It's a bad design of engineering for an exit ramp off of a major interstate that is getting busier with each passing year. And I agree, the road needs to be updated. There's not enough land to proceed with the project. Christo is aware and even stated that this cannot feasibly be addressed without the variances, given the shallow, linear shape of the property. Without the requested variances, the property could not economically be developed and not feasible. So all these concerns being mentioned this evening are contrary to public interest, and they will cause hardships to the existing homes and neighborhoods with the traffic backups and cutting through neighborhoods of the existing homes who have and are paying taxes to Colerain Township. So please honor the current variance that is already in place, and remember, as you all make your decision tonight, several times it says, no grant of a variance shall be authorized unless the board finds that such variance of the resolution will not be contrary to the public interest. So I personally thank you once again for your time and consideration on our public concerns and the hardships that would occur with such a development. And I do have a copy for you guys.
Let the record show that I've received the letter that was just read to us. We would submit it for evidence.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody need to see it?
Thank you, miss.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Douglas. Next on our list would be Tracy Talby.
Hello, my name is Tracy Talby, and I reside at 11345 Gravenhurst Drive, 45231. And I wanted to read a letter. Now, in this letter, it says we, as my husband is here as well with me. So I referred to, because this is from both of us. Okay, he's shy. Okay. To all board members, we are responding to the proposed changes to the site plan submitted by Christo Homes. While some of our concerns were addressed with the changes, there are still concerns and issues that have not changed. These concerns are as follows. Traffic. We are aware that while Christo has reduced the number of homes by 6 units, 3 duplex buildings, that still does not change the fact that there will be 20 driveways coming directly onto Houston Road, which is a busy main road in the area. Many of the drivers use Hamilton Avenue exit off of 275 West to Houston Road to Pippin Road as an alternate route to avoid the congested Colerain Avenue corridor. What kind of impact would construction in this small area have on the traffic flow on Houston Road, especially with water, sewer, underground utilities to be installed, plus the large construction equipment, excavators, bulldozers, dump trucks, flatbed trucks delivering supplies, etc., that would be entering and exiting in an already congested area? In regards to the traffic study to be conducted, our questions are as follows. Exactly who will hire and pay for a traffic study? Christo Homes, Tobin Ltd., Colerain Township. If so, if it were Christo Homes or Tobin Ltd., wouldn't that be considered a conflict of interest if they were the ones hiring a third party and paying for it? Okay. Also, would current residents get any input as to when the traffic study would be done, such as time of day, day of week, etc.? And would current residents get to see the final written results of the traffic study? I have spoken to staff at Hamilton County and found that Houston Road from Hamilton Avenue to Pippin Road is owned and maintained by Hamilton County. I spoke to an engineer in the traffic department, and when I mentioned the possibility of traffic calming devices in the area, I was told that probably would not be an option as such devices hinder snow removal and road maintenance efforts. Again, we are concerned about what such congestion would mean for our residential streets in the form of increased traffic flow through the subdivision on narrow residential streets that are not meant to be used as a main road. If drivers will not abide by the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on Houston Road, what makes you think that they will abide by it with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on a residential street in our subdivision? This could have potentially devastating consequences, as we have many children out and about riding bikes, playing, or walking to and from the Circle K or schools. The next concern: where would the mailboxes for these homes be located? At the end of the driveways like the other houses on the road? Or would they be placed in a central location? If so, where would that location be, and how would the residents access that location? Is there to be a sidewalk installed in front of the houses? If the mailboxes are to be at the road, would add 20 new stops for a mail carrier in a high-risk accident area. If they are to be in a central location, where would that be, and how would it affect the traffic flow on Houston Road or de Havilland Drive? I have personally checked out the residential sites being currently developed in Colerain Township. After looking at the site plans on Colerain Township website and driving to the sites currently under development, I have found that not one of the current projects have driveways that come out directly out onto a main road. How is it that at a development with 20 driveways coming out onto a busy main road is even a consideration when residential developments in the township in the past couple decades all have driveways that come out onto residential side streets? Privacy. Now that the proposed units will be ranch style versus two-story homes, that does address some of the privacy concerns. However, with regards to the privacy screening that the zoning staff has required, we would like to have clarification as to what type of screening Cristo is considering. Would this be in the form of privacy fences or a more organic screens like trees and shrubs, or a combination of both? Drainage. After viewing the new site proposal, we have noticed that the retention pond is much larger than in the previous proposal. Again, we are concerned about disturbing the natural drainage that is currently there, that disturbing the natural drainage that is currently there will disrupt the drainage in our yards and basements. Would digging basements for the new houses cause drainage issues in the yards and basements of the existing houses? Any drainage issues that may arise could adversely affect the value or saleability of our homes. If there would be any drainage issues in the yards and basements of the existing homes, what would the course of action for the homeowners be for the homeowners of the existing homes? Would Colerain Township take the responsibility, or Cristo Homes? I ask this question because there is a Cristo development in Trenton, Ohio, named Centennial Run, which has had issues with drainage that caused flooding of basements and yards in the homes built there. I have not heard if those issues have been resolved. Okay. In conclusion, we appreciate that we appreciate the diligence that has been given to our concerns expressed at the meeting last month, as the revisions that Cristo Homes has made to address some of these concerns. However, the revisions do not go far enough in addressing the main concern objection of the traffic issues. Given the significant departure from the residential site, the residential site development standards, the fact that the driveways will still be coming out onto a busy main road in the township, plus the added stops for Rumpke school buses and mail carriers, including FedEx, UPS, and Amazon, this just does not seem to be an acceptable parcel for such a development. Again, we are not against development, but would rather see these homes built where the driveways would come out onto a residential side street. Thank you for your time and consideration. Bill and Tracy Talby, homeowners.
Thank you.
Would you like that?
If you want to present it, we can take it. Thank you. Let it be shown that another speech has been provided to me for the record.
Be happy to have one. Thank you, miss. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Stephen, for getting that.
Okay, and next on our list would be Shelley Litzinger.
Thank you. Shelley Litzinger, 11315 Gravenhurst Drive. A lot of what has already been mentioned was what was on my list, a lot of the same from last month, and I also appreciate the efforts on the revisions. Basically, my thing for this evening were a couple of questions, which some have been addressed already. Just going a little bit further on the screening that they said that would be provided. And I believe the term that you used was evergreen standard. So if that could just be a little more detail given as to exactly what that is. I think her question was the same thing as far as, is it just trees or what exactly that is? Then also, my concern was also the same with the criteria in section D not being contrary to the public interest and wouldn't cause unnecessary hardship. All of the issues that we've been discussing with regard to safety, traffic, if the detention basin actually is going to be a pond, just, what's going to go in there, what do we have to get out of there, fishing out cars, what have you, all of that, how can that be not considered, contrary to public interest and hardship? So if someone maybe could just explain the reasoning behind why the answer was it is not contrary to public interest, and that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, miss.
I have no one else on my list. Just want to verify no one else was planning on speaking this evening. Can I get a motion to close the public portion?
Make a motion?
Do I have a
I'll
se-
second.
Discussion? I see none. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. We'll start with Mr. Wilson as far as any questions you might have for anyone that spoke this evening.
Just to echo the question issued by a couple of the speakers, if I could ask the applicant regarding the screening question, could you provide a little bit more detail as to what that screening would be?
As she's getting up there, may I state what our current standards are in the township? If that'd be okay, or
Please.
with your permission, sir?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, I should have asked that. And with yours as well, miss. Currently, the buffer yard, as Mr. Springsteen alluded to, for like, let's say, the typical standard would be if you had a place of religious worship in a residential, so a church, for most intensive purposes, in a residential district, it'd be a 6-foot-high fence or wall or earth berm, and 3 evergreen trees and 6 shrubs for every 60 lineal feet. That is our current standard for any conditional use to be approved. So as a sort of baseline, in my opinion, our 3 evergreen trees per 60 lineal feet, that's not a whole lot to me, but that's just my opinion. To cover that aspect, that's what our code would state if this were a conditional use.
Okay, now let's see what they're going to,
Thank
what
you,
they're
sir.
presenting with it. Can you provide some clarity on what your intentions are for the screening?
Sure, there's existing vegetation there now. It is our intention to maintain as much of that as possible. It's mature vegetation. We want to keep what's there. So it's that, and then we'll supplement as necessary to meet the intent of the code. We don't have a specific plan prepared yet, but that's our intention, is to keep what's there and then supplement as needed to meet the intent of the code.
Okay, so it's going to be all then live screening, won't be any fencing?
At this point, no.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilson, you have more questions?
I did, and this might be for staff. Regarding the traffic study, there was one question about if the traffic study shows that traffic will be significantly worse, what is the result then? Are there further steps down the line that would then put a halt on this, or what is the purpose of the traffic study?
The purpose, as I understand, I'm not an engineer, but the purpose of the traffic study is exactly that, to determine what would the impact be to the neighborhood, to the commute. That's all done through the Hamilton County Engineer's Office, the standards that is brought up as far as like a conflict of interest. Generally, we give professionals the assumption that they're going to act in a professional manner. But if anything looked, I guess, askew, hopefully that would be caught by the engineer's office. They're professionals in that field. I'm not. And then if there was some type of mitigating factor that had to be done per that study by the engineer's office, they would handle that aspect of it. That's just not anything Colerain Township handles.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all for me.
Mr. Shupp?
For staff, I just had a question. I think we covered this last week in regards to sidewalks. I believe you said you were requiring or monies to be put in a fund.
That's correct. For any new development, they're required to do a sidewalk along all the lot line that fronts a public right-of-way. So typically, it's a front yard. Or in lieu of that, they'd have to come back to they, being any applicant, would have to come to the BZA. They could be approved to put those funds into a sidewalk fund, where that's done for if Colerain Township and Mr. Springsteen, and then also Mr. Miller, who's mentioned as well, we've identified certain areas like we really need sidewalks in this area. This could be one of them. But if there's one that's a higher priority, if in lieu of actually constructing the sidewalks at this site, any applicant were to put funds in that money into that fund, then we build sidewalks in the areas that we've identified being of most need. Did I say that? Okay,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to have an orphan sidewalk in the middle of a
That's
development
exactly.
when there's nothing to
we
connect
don't
with the
need a
rest
whole
of the
lot
community.
Sidewalks out in the western part of Colerain Township, we do need a lot
Yeah.
in areas like this.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have, or for Etta Reed. And I understand now that they're going to be 2-bedroom units.
Correct.
And how about the garages, number of garages?
Attached 2-car garages.
Okay, that's going to remain the same, so, all right. Basements,
That has yet to be determined.
okay. And the price point pretty much remain the same? I'm concerned about the effect on the community.
Sure, I'll kind of turn that over to Mr. Christo when it
Okay.
comes to price.
Hi, Joseph A. Christo, 51 Traditions, Turn, Montgomery, Ohio.
Did you stand to be sworn in?
I did.
Thank you very much.
The question was on the price point. Well, sure, from going from a square footage of the previous product, which I believe was around 1,700 square feet. This product is closer to 1,200 square feet per half. And if we did build on basements, it would be over the 300 mark. If it was on a slab foundation, we could achieve below the 300,000 mark, around 270,000. Obviously, with mortgage rates going up, affordability going down, we need to make our best effort to make the homes attainable. That's always what we're focused upon.
Okay. I think that's all I had.
Could I make one comment?
Certainly.
You know, there's one consideration, and I'm looking here, again, I have to qualify myself like a lot of us, I'm not an engineer, but looking at the Houston Road strip there, it's basically, it's a runway. In fact, there would be no reason to decelerate. In fact, there would be every reason to accelerate when you're driving down there. There's no houses, there's no mailboxes. You're not driving through a community when you're on that strip. And what happens when people accelerate, they hit the point of the turn where people realize they're going too fast. Again, I'm not an engineer, but that's a runway as it is in its current condition. And unless you change the landscape, I don't see any reason that would change. So we did come today prepared to offer an alternative. Because there was a privacy issues going from the 2 stories to the ranches, thinking of the safety, reducing the overall units, and then coming with a home. Again, the audience is correct. You cannot guarantee who moves in there, but there certainly is limitations of who can move in a home with 3 bedrooms on 2 stories to a 1-story home with 2 bedrooms. At least we are limiting the market to those sized families. Again, like Ed had described, it would be the empty nesters. Children could visit, but it would not be a major factor for those homes. And again, I'm coming into a situation that sounds like it's already difficult, but I'm just pointing out that is a runway. When you go through a community, you're slowing down. There's driveways sometimes on both sides, and you have to make sure you're aware of those obstacles. At this current time, the only time someone would consider decelerating was at the turn, and I do see where issues could happen at that point. It's the only point I wanted to make.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
You good? Mr. Bartle?
I don't think so. I mean, I had similar questions about the traffic study. Only in that if we're adding 20 residences, I guess there are 2-car garages, so there could be 40 vehicles total. Is it a free service? Do you know?
What's that, sir?
The traffic study?
I do not believe it's a free service. No,
Okay.
I believe that'd be on the
So
onus
is the applicant willing to pursue the traffic study? Or is that too high of a cost impact for what it's worth?
If you're going to speak, come to the podium, please.
Sure, cost does become a factor, and at this time, like all deals, we know how the process works. We've invested quite a bit with the engineering, and we'll do so if we think it's a good investment of our time and efforts with EDA staff. However, if we get the indication that This is something that ultimately the board is not interested in. With the 2 stories or even the ranches, then I'm in a difficult position, and I'm not sure with a traffic study if that would have any impact on the current thought of the board.
If I may state, sorry.
Well,
Sir.
go ahead.
If it's a condition of the board, it's a requirement to be done for development to move forward, if that clarifies that on both sides and for all sides involved.
No, I'm just
But no,
curious if I were
they
to
wanted back
make
out.
it a
Yes, sir.
recommendation.
Oh, yes, sir. I apologize.
Is it truly fruitful to do it, knowing there's only 40 cars impacting this area? Like, what would the end result of this traffic study be? Is the result of it worth the expense to do it? That's what I'm trying to get to.
It's going to acknowledge what the residents are already experiencing. It's going to acknowledge.
So, anyway, that's all I have.
Nothing else? All right. Just some points of clarification. So if Hamilton County does, I looked it up and confirmed that Hamilton County does have it listed as a commercial vacant land, but just so you know, commercial land can go to residential at any time. You can't go from residential to commercial. So going backwards is within our Colerain Township has it zoned R6 though. So that supersedes the Hamilton County's map, right?
Well, zoning classification and auditor use classification are not the same thing at all. Just
Okay.
generally, they are close to each other, and I completely understand how, if you looked on one
Confusing.
website and it said, hey, commercial, our zoning map is saying residential, that's not, they're kind of apples and oranges, just so that's clear. Zoning is what the township says, these uses are approved there or not approved there. A use classification, for an instance, if this parcel had been part of the parcel to the southeast there, the Houston Industrial Park and Spade Development, as it went through our zoning commission in 91, I believe. If it had been tied to that at any point, which I believe it was way back in the day, it would just get the same use classification tied onto it until some other use superseded that former use, if that makes sense. Does that,
Right now, it's vacant land. It
it's
can be.
zoned residential.
Right.
And that means whatever Colerain Township says is a residential use is approved there as a use. The auditor, they don't approve the use, they just try and classify what they think the use of the property is or may not be.
But as a matter of fact, even if it was commercial, they still could do a residential on it because you can go residential on a commercial property.
If it's zoned residential, you can do any residential use, conditional use, or approvable use, if that makes sense. If it's zoned a non-residential district for us, so it's a B1, 2, 3, O1, I1, or something different, like a PDB, then you could do whatever that use says.
Or you could go residential because you can always go down to residential.
Not in our use code, sir.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
If,
I'm glad you're clarifying. So
If there would be a point where I could make just a couple points of clarification, it
it depends
Just
on,
let me
it
know
depends on
when
if you're
that's
crossing off some of
appropriate
my questions. So we'll see. Go ahead.
Okay. So real quick, this probably should have been done by a separate entity prior to this, but as we're sitting here, it came up a lot. What I like to try and do is present just the facts as objectively as possible, if possible. So real quick, I just did a quick study or quick measurements of the parcel as it exists now, threw on some buffers to try and create what would be a rear yard, a front yard setback. If you just did the depth of the buildable area and the length of that whole parcel just by our code, I'm not saying that would meet other like soil and water requirements, subdivision requirements, you could at this moment build 55.812 units on there based on our code, just on our code, without a variance, as long as you met every other setback. And then, okay, that's fine. That's just regarding the lot width. The minimum lot width of our code is 65 feet. The minimum lot width, as it's stated in here, it's measured at the building line. So at the front yard setback, typically, that's where the minimum lot width has to be. In this case, when they're saying 30 feet. So you could have a pie-shaped lot that's 20-something in the front, as long as it extends to 33, in this case, 33 feet, or whatever the variance request is, at the building line, that's the minimum lot width, as our definition stated in Article 16. Just should have clarified that earlier. I apologize.
That's good.
So that was just, if you just did the lot width, you'd have 55.812 units, whatever. So 55. Now, for the lot area, where it's 7,500 feet, at approximately almost just under 55,000 square feet, you take 7,500 square feet, divide it 55,000 by 7,500, you get 7.32, times that by the 4 units. Just without any variance, as use, you could do 29.28 4-unit buildings there. per our code. Just, they could, anyone who owned the property. If the neighbors got together and bought it and you wanted to build this, you could do, you brought it into our office and it met these standards, you could build 29.28 units there right now today. We couldn't even stop you, much less anything else. So like if you met, that's what's called a use by right. That's what you know, all the property law and the advantages of you know, American property ownership. That's what you get to do on your property by all of our zoning laws today. So where we're talking about 20 units, it is less than what is allowed by right. Just, that's gotta be said. Now, anything besides that is different. Where this applicant, they're saying, hey, we don't wanna do the condo style. That's where we're getting to some of these variants now. And then the rear yard setback, that's not included in that. But just saying, but you could build 29 multifamily structures there by right today. And we couldn't, I would have, legally, I would have to approve it. And I would approve it if it met all the standards, just so that's out there. Cover the lot width, the auto use, and I believe that covered pretty much everything that was brought up. The screen definitions we already covered. So I just, that part has to be out there. That's what could be done. Sometimes this is an opportunity to get a better development than what could be done by right. This process can be, pardon me.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Another comment was made by one of the residents that this was a rare green space. It's green space. I mean, it's somebody wants to build and buy it and build on it. That's property right ownership. If you wanted to buy it as it's a tenant in common, which is be really cool. You guys get together, buy the property, you keep it a green space. But somebody else kind of beat you to the punch, and they're buying it and they want to do something with it. We can't stop them from doing that because that's their right. That's a property right. Now, they need to build within with our code, so that's what we're here about today. So scratch that off my thing. Sidewalks. If this is to be built, it's got to have sidewalks, without a doubt.
That'd be the board's decision to make, or the developer to request that from the board. Yes, sir.
We're talking how safe it is for people to drive on it. I can't imagine trying to walk in the grassy area along this and not have a sidewalk. That's all. I think I covered everything the mailbox was mentioned. I think last meeting you were going to have a grouped mailbox.
We have to work with the local postmaster. East Postmaster is different about where they want them, how they want to do it. So if approved, we'll have to work with the local postmaster to figure out where we'll put a cluster mailbox.
Right, okay. Answers that question, whoever asked that. I think I covered all the questions that were brought up. I have nothing else to say. Does anybody else have anything before we make a resolution or motion? I see none. Can someone make a motion, please?
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the variances as stated. However, since there were two different ones, I will read the ones that I would go by. And it would be number 1, side yard setback variance of 10 feet. Number 2, rear yard setback, a variance of 15 feet. Number 3, minimum lot width, a variance of 32 feet. And number 4, minimum lot area, variance of 3,804 square feet. With the following conditions, that if there are any significant changes, that it be resubmitted. Number 2, that there be additional screening at the rear portion of the yards. And no requirement for a traffic study.
Can we add number 4 to the sidewalks?
And 4 sidewalks at the front property.
Thank you. All right, a motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? See none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartle,
Yes.
Mr. Shupp,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Roberto.
No. Motion's been carried. All right, it brings us to the next applicant, BZA 2022-14. The applicant presenting the property owner is requesting an expansion of a non-conforming use located at 10520 Pippin Road. This is parcel number 510-0032-0456 The applicant is Tri-State Foliage and is also the property owner. Does the staff have a presentation?
Yes, we do. The applicant is requesting an expansion of a non-conforming use. Currently, the property is commercial, but it is located in a residential zone. It is located at 10520 Pippin Road. The applicant and owner is Tri-State Foliage. So this map shows that it's in the northeastern portion as well. So this is some of the surrounding. You can see that Lake Gloria is across the street, and it's located on Pippin Road. Here's the zoning of the area. It's surrounded and immersed in R6 zoning. Here's an aerial of it. It's about 2.364 acres for that specific parcel that the red star is on. Here's the property map. There's the topography of the area. You can see that it's flat in many areas, and that there's some topography changes in others. Here's some street views that you can see of the property. This was taken, I believe, in March, so there's a lot less greenery, obviously, than would be this time of year. And then this is, again, an image of this property from the street. So the applicable zoning is located in Article 11, non-conforming uses. The article talks about expansion of non-conforming uses. And then highlighted is, again, the portion of the zoning resolution that talks about expansion of non-conforming uses. Then the proposed plan is to place a fueling station on the property with a maximum capacity of 1,000 gallon diesel fuel. It's 4 feet in height, about 4 feet in width, and then 10 feet in length. It would be above ground. And then the tank would be double walled and would not be visible from the road or surrounding properties. And this was staff's approximation of the site plan provided by the applicant to show where the location of the refueling station would be located. Here's what the applicant had submitted to show what the refueling station would look like. And there isn't review criteria for expansion of non-conforming uses in our resolution. However, variance review criteria would be still a good framework to use when reviewing this non-conforming use expansion. So staff's finding the proposed use is it's a non-conforming use in R6 urban residential district. It is existing, so it is allowed. It is staff's opinion that the granting of the variance would not be contrary to public interest. If the board so chose, they can attach any conditions regarding the location that they would like. And staff's recommendation is approval of the requested expansion of non-conforming use with the condition that variance is granted in accordance with the submitted site plan only, and any significant changes to the plan as presented to the board would nullify the granted variances. And that is staff's report.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for staff? Is the applicant present? Come and give.
Brian Johnston with Tri-State Foliage, 10520 Pippin Road.
Thank you.
And I'm Mary Eisnagel. I'm with World Fuel Services, and we will be providing the tank, and I live at 1345 Mills of Miami in Milford.
Thank you.
If you could present the next slide, please. Just a little bit who we are. Tri-State Foliage was established in 1985. As mentioned, we're located at 10520 Pippin Road, which was also mentioned just as a landmark. It's directly across the entrance of Lake Gloria, which was Lake Gloria. We own and operate 8 diesel-powered trucks, which is the reason why we're asking for this fuel tank. We're a wholesale-only company. We do not do any retail sales. We employ approximately 35 employees during our peak season. Dan Johnston owns Tri-State Foliage. He is my father, and I am the manager of Tri-State Foliage, Brian Johnston. With regards to safety, just since we're talking about diesel fuel, we have not had any significant emergencies on the property within 37 years of operation. Myself, I have 21 years of experience in public safety as a certified police officer in the state of Ohio and still continue to hold that certification. So I've had numerous trainings within safety. And I think that just goes to show that we're a very safety-minded company. The total acreage and land of the parcels that immediately surround Tri-State Foliage, which we'll show here on another slide, is actually owned by Dan Johnston. So the parcels that would come within closest contact to this fuel tank are actually owned by him. If you could do the next slide, please. This is just what I was describing here. If you look towards the top of that of the slide there, where it says Tri-State Foliage, this would show you that the parcel of property butting right up to that is owned by Dan Johnston, and the other property to the left, closer to Pippin, is also owned by Dan Johnston. Next slide. This is just an aerial of it, where that red star is. That's currently where we park our trucks, and we have a small little fueling station there of DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, which we just store in some 55-gallon drums. And from there, I'll hand it over to Mary to speak about the tanks.
Okay, so as mentioned, I'm with World Fuels. It was currently owned by Likens Energy Solutions. I worked for Likens Energy for 30 years, so I have lots of experience in the fuel business. We at Likens or World Fuels have put in about 70 tanks a year. So this is something we're very familiar with. We have had absolutely no accidents related to these tanks. The tanks, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but they are steel tanks. They are double walled, so there's no potential of any leakage coming from the tank. If there's any leakage at all, typically it comes from the nozzle or the hose, which we are responsible for, and that he would call us and we would come out and replace it.
Very just comment on this slide here. This is just an example. We are not doing anything with gasoline. It's diesel only. But the slide also illustrates that our intentions are to put a concrete slab down with pylons around the tank.
Yeah, and so that is something that we try to require from all of our customers that take on a tank, that they do have what we call the bollards around the tanks. And then this is just an example of one of the recent tank installs that we have done. Like he said, we're just going to have diesel, so he's going to have clear diesel, which it will come in. The taxes will be associated with the diesel when we bring it in. It's part of what we do for on-road to make sure that the customers aren't paying the road tax.
Yeah, next slide, please.
As mentioned, the tanks come double walled. They are flame shield certified. They all come with an STI serial number. The tanks will be placed on a concrete pad, and they will be installed by our installers. We do this, like I had mentioned, about 70 a year, and they will be completely safe. A diesel tank is very similar to like a heating oil tank, only heating oil tanks for homes are not double walled. So these tanks in particular are even safer than a home heating tank in somebody's basement or garage.
Slide. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I see no one else in the audience. Assuming that there's no one else to speak for or against, can we close the public portion?
I'll move so.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartle,
Yes.
Mr. Shupp,
Yes?
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Roberto.
Yes. The only comment I got to make is I noticed there was like a Steeler logo down at the bottom there. That's going to be replaced with a Bingo logo, right? Yeah.
That is actually the company that makes the steel. People ask that lots of times, like, what are you sponsoring the Steelers? No, it's just their brand logo.
I'm only teasing anyway. Mr. Wilson, do you have a question?
I do not, no.
Mr. Shep?
I do. I'm just curious. I just read it's either 500 or 1,000.
So the, well, we.
Please come back to the.
Depending on, sorry about that. We had proposed that we could bring him a 500-gallon tank or 1,000, depending on if you guys wanted it to be smaller. He really is going to be using about 800 gallons a week. So we prefer to take in a 1,000-gallon tank because it would be one time that we'd need to come to his location. And we're trying to do that more with the business that we've been taking on because of truck driver shortages. We would rather put the investment in the larger tank and come once a week versus coming twice a week with a smaller tank. And the tank dimensions, as mentioned, were for the larger tank versus the smaller tank.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No questions.
I don't have any questions. That your presentation was complete. Do we have anyone who would like to make a motion, please?
Yeah, staff recommendations.
You looking for staff recommendations?
Go further?
Right.
Read them. I can't find them in the package. Oh.
I'll make a motion to approve the expansion of a non-conforming use for BZA 2022-14.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second.
I'll second it.
A motion and second been made. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartle?
Yes.
Mr. Shep?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Roberto?
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so the next part of our meeting, we have no unfinished business. We're still, next, we're going to do the approval of the minutes from September the 28th, 2022. Can we have a motion to do that?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Assuming they were revised and updated?
Thank you, Mr. Bartol.
Thank you,
for
Mr. Bartle.
your Twitter comments.
Mr. Bartol?
Yes.
Mr. Shep?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Roberto?
Yes. Administrative matters, we have none. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Can I ask a quick question, sorry? On the Mr. I wasn't on there, but it came up here, and I should ask before. What, does the board have any guidance to, like, when I say we put a statement in there, like, any significant changes, would there be a better way to encapsulate?
A plus or minus?
Like 5% or?
Well, sure, okay. The one thing, like, I worry about putting something in there like that would be, what if it's like 5.01%, or what if it's a plus or minus 5%? Like, I started kind of doing that, or attempting to try and get a capture statement of like the gist of the plan as it's presented, right? The essence, the spirit of it, that kind of thing. When we had the Beefus development go in, and they were showing 92 units, what I didn't want to happen was we approved these variances, and we're missing, right? I didn't see something, some other angle. They get a variance. It's not probably a little more neurotic than most people normally are. They revise their plan that meets the variances in a different manner, right? Different layout. And now instead of 92 units, there's 114. But because it meets the variances, but there was to me, that'd be a significant change, but it might be, I'm trying to, if you have any advice, get some kind of like, hey, what we're looking at is roughly what it should be. If there's a 1 foot, 2 foot, maybe that's not a big, maybe it is a big deal. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
If you just leave it the way it is and just say significant, what's the biggest downfall to that? Like, could some development go haywire and there's a legal action or something?
In my opinion, it would, let's say it's something I say significant or think is in it, but they being the applicant would not, they'd be back here in front of the board, and then the board could decide.
I think it would be better to have a little more clarity.
Okay, so just.
You know, a plus or minus, or either percentage, or if you just foot, whatever it is so that it's definable.
Protects you, too.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
does, it protects
okay.
you, because then it doesn't look like you're showing any favoritism.
Okay.
And that's what, definitely, we don't want to do that at your level. We don't want
No.
the audience think that you're trying to be, or you're being bribed, or whatever, because we got a lot of that going on. So I think to have something in writing just to show what that range is.
Could we identify which number or criterion that is most important to us? For instance, like
not housing units, but
without
maybe
an increase in the number of buildings.
That might be a great way to,
units.
yep, plus or minus 5%.
Without an increase or without a decrease in the overall area of the property, or like the units, something like that. Pick one or two criteria that we deem to be.
Thank you very much for your guidance on that. I think I can do that next time. We can craft that. Thank you.
Anything else?
No,
Right,
at
do
the
we have a
moment.
motion?
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're very welcome. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
A motion second been made. Roll call vote.
Mr. Bartol,
Yes.
Mr. Shutt,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Roberto.
Yes, we're adjourned.